the tragic death of a Palestinian family on a Gaza beach. Who's to blame? Well, it depends who you ask. Hamas points to Israel, and the IDF says it has no responsibility. One thing's for sure, Israel is in the spotlight of the world when it comes to human rights. And who are the groups working in the region pointing out Israel's human rights violations, and in doing so informing public and policy opinion across the world? Well, those groups would be NGOs. But what, might you ask, is an NGO?
NGO stands for non-governmental organisation, and these groups often act to highlight human rights issues and to promote humanitarian development and assistance.
And there are hundreds. They're interested mainly in Palestinian affairs. The websites and reports of these bodies are packed with accusations claiming Israeli human rights violations. But don't believe everything you read. That's the advice of the NGO Monitor, whose job is to hold them to account.
Our aim is to provide some accountability and criticism that otherwise would not be there. There is no one else that does what we do at the moment.
Headed up by Professor Gerald Steinberg and founded after the 2001 UN Durban Conference on Racism, the NGO Monitor says that Israel can now defend itself from unfair human rights accusations. But is there really an issue here, or are we just talking about Jewish oversensitivity?
I think if you look at the numbers and the facts, you'll see that it's not just a matter of being oversensitive. If Human Rights Watch dedicate 1/3 of their resources in 2004 in their Middle East division to criticism of Israel, ignoring other major human rights abusers, this is really saying something, and there are facts here, not just feelings.
Take Israel's security fence. Israel says it keeps terrorism at bay, but many of the world's NGOs, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, would call this a sign of an apartheid state. They didn't come to today's conference, and this tension doesn't only play out locally, but nationally as well, and on the world stage too. Over the past almost 60 years, Israel's relationship with the United Nations has not been the most comfortable one. We came here to find out if things have changed.
There has been at the UN an infrastructure of systematic bias against the State of Israel. It began in 1975, launched by the Soviet Union and the Arab League, which called Zionism racism in a resolution and set up a series of structures, committees, reports, bureaucratic divisions dedicated to casting Israel as the worst violator of human rights. Israel's record should be scrutinized, absolutely, but it should be treated equally like every other nation, and that is just not happening at the United Nations.
Everybody needs a figurehead, and for NGO Monitor, that role's taken by former Cabinet Minister Natan Sharansky. Capping off a day spent debating the terminology and complexities of international human rights violations, the former Soviet refusenik gave the keynote address, highly critical of many NGOs, highlighting what he said was their failure to treat dictatorships with the same scrutiny as democracies when it comes to human rights.
That's why when NGOs refuse to make this difference between two types of societies, they simply become propagandistic tool in the hands of dictatorships.
So back to that tragic event on a Gaza beach. The IDF claims it was not the result of Israeli fire. An inquiry was held into the event, along with the Defence Minister and Chief of Staff. Natan Sharansky was there.
1 hour we were explaining why it is not Israel, why Israel has nothing to do with this. And somebody joked even that, saying that, look, we were convened to discuss hundreds of missiles which fell on Sderot, but all our session is about one shell, which probably was not ours. Well, that's the price which we are paying for being a democratic country and an open country. I don't think we can do much against those who don't want to know the truth.
What the world has to say about Israel's human rights abuses and what Israel has to say about that are two very different stories. For the time being, NGO Monitor continues to fight to try and readdress that balance. I've been Adam Ross for Info Live TV at the Menachem Begin Heritage Centre.